News Central now begins this hour in Nigeria, the capital Abuja, where President Bola Tinubu on Wednesday dismissed 5 ministers from his cabinet and appointed 7 others. This was contained in a statement by the Special Advisor to the President on Communication and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, on Wednesday. The affected ministers include Uju Ken Ohaneye as Minister of Women Affairs, Lola John as Minister of Tourism, Tahir Maman as Minister of Education, Abdullahi Gandu as Minister of State, Housing and Urban Development, and Jamila Ibrahim as Minister of Youth Development. Well, according to Onanuga, President Tinubu nominated Bianca Udumegu as the Minister of State Foreign Affairs, while Nentawe Yewalda as the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, officially bringing an end to the tenure of suspended Betta Edu. The President also nominated Maigari Dingyari as the Minister of Labour and Employment, Jumoke Oduwole as the Minister of Industry, Idi Maya as Minister for the newly created Livestock Development Ministry, Yusuf Atta as Minister of State, Housing and Urban Development, with Suwaiba Ahmad as Minister of State Education. In the meantime, the President also appointed media professional Sunday Dare as Special Advisor on Public Communications and Orientation. Dare served as Minister of Youth and Sports Development under the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari.
These are the following ministers who have been discharged, and as you know, the President met them this afternoon to thank them for their services for the nation. They are as follows: Barrister Uju Ken Ohaneye, Minister of Women Affairs; Lola Adejohn, Minister of Tourism; Professor Tahir Mama, Minister of Education; Abdullahi Muhammad Guazo, Minister of State, Housing and Urban Development; Dr. Jamila Ibrahim, Minister of Youth Development. So only 5 ministers were discharged. First one, the Minister for Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, is the person who has been appointed is Dr. Nentawe Yewalda. I think it's from Plateau State. That's Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction. That's the no minister, if approved by the Senate. The next one is Muhammadu Maigari Dingyadi, who is now the Minister of Labour and Employment. He now go to the, I think he's Minister of State before, he's now going to the, he's Minister of Labour and Employment, Federal Minister of Employment. I think Substantive Minister of Labour. Bianca Odinaka Odumegu Ojukwu, she's been appointed Minister of State Foreign Affairs. Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, she is now the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment. Idi Mukta Meher is the Minister of the new Ministry of Livestock Development. Right Honorable Yusuf Abdullahi Atta is the Minister of State, Housing and Urban Development. And lastly, Suwaiba Said Ahmad, that is a doctor, is the Minister of State, Ministry of Education.
Well, in a related development, President Bola Tinubu has dissolved the Niger Delta Ministry and the Ministry of Sports Development. The decision was announced today by the Presidential Advisor, Bayo Onanuga, following a Federal Executive Council meeting in Abuja. The newly created Ministry of Regional Development will now oversee all regional commissions, including the Niger Delta Development Commission. Meanwhile, the responsibilities of the Ministry of Sports Development have been transferred to the National Sports Commission, which will now handle all sports activities in Nigeria. Also, the Ministry of Tourism has been merged with the Ministry of Culture and Creative Economy, creating a single entity to streamline operations in both sectors. Let's also tell you that President Bola Tinubu on Wednesday swore in Dr. Abdullahi Usman Bello as a new chairman of the Code of Conduct Bureau. The brief ceremony took place ahead of the Federal Executive Council meeting, which was also chaired by the President. After the swearing-in, Bello spoke to State House correspondents, pledging to tackle corruption through the Bureau. He emphasized the importance of integrity and accountability among public officials vowing to uphold the agency's mandate.
First of all, I want to thank Mr. President for appointing me into this position. I'm really happy, and I want to assure Mr. President and the people of Nigeria I will do my best to make sure that I deal with this huge task that is ahead of me. Like you mentioned, Code of Conduct Bureau is the foremost anti-corruption agency, the first anti-corruption agency in Nigeria, and I intend to deliver on the mandates of the Bureau. It's all about making sure that people, public servants, they behave with integrity, they avoid corruption, no conflict of interest. So that is the aim of it. Integrity, accountability, that is what the duties that I need to deliver. And I promise Nigerians that, inshallah, I'm going to do my best to make sure that I deliver on the mandate of the Bureau. Thank you very much.
All right, so you have gone around the world.
Yes.
UK, US, you've seen it all.
To discuss this, we're joined by Victor Atewe, media consultant and political analyst. Good morning and thanks for joining us. Let's go straight into the question. I mean, the president sacked 5 ministers and welcomed 7 new ministers amidst calls by Nigerians for a total reduction of appointed cabinet members. What do you make of this latest development?
Okay, thank you for having me and good morning to you. Well, I think some ministers that were laid off yesterday, some of them, if you, in all fairness to the president, I think some of them don't really know why they are there. And some of them are not really active, and they've not really proven to show that, yes, they are ready to support or to help in the, in the administration in terms of contributing their own quota, in terms of bringing their OA game on the table. Maybe they thought they had a long time, and but the newly added ministers, some, for me, I think some are politically motivated, some are really irrelevant. I mean, one would have thought that, having laid off 5 ministers, maybe you cut it down, maybe you employed maybe 4 ministers, but coming to bear that you're having some ministers, for instance, there's some ministries, for me, I think they ought to, co-opt them under the Ministry of Agri. For instance, why have a minister for livestock development? I mean, the one will laugh, what is his duty? Because you end up having such ministers who will be like, of course, there will be conflict of interest within them and, of course, Ministry of Agri. That would have thought that it should be a department or that Ministry of Agri. And, of course, for some, I mean, I'm also the school of, I believe in the school of thought that said some positions were in preparation of the next election, some would have said giving to the wife of late Ojukwu is just a way of consoling some some other part of the country to make them feel belonging in the administration. Overall, I think some ministers from the sacked ministers are really trying. And not holding brief for them. Some are, really coming out to work or to contribute their own quota to the administration. But a lot of them are really redundant, and I think they need to cut down on many ministers, of course, ministries, and merge them, because with that it will help to cut down the cost of governance. Because over the years or over time, we've been crying on cutting down on the cost of governance, and of course, some SSCs need to be cut down. But sacking 5, appointing 7. Well, you leave one to wonder that is he that you're just trying to compensate some people who you feel that just want them to come on board as to see what they can. Let me just say compensation. So it is for me, but it's not what Nigeria needs now. Nigeria needs a president that is on ground, a president that is really proactive to the yearnings of the people and of course the surface of the people. Nigeria needs a president that it's okay, to sack, to lead them off, because of course they are not working. They are not really delivering on what you've given them, or they're delivering on their appointments. But of course, one would have thought that you'd be prudent in terms of your your employment. I mean, in terms of employing new hands, and of course, cutting them down to even to a lower number and merging a lot of ministries together. For me, I really don't see what the Ministry of Livestock Development. I mean, why separate that ministry from Ministry of Agri? That would have been under the Ministry of Agri. Maybe that portfolio should have been under the purview of the Minister of State of Agri. But having that, and of course, I don't really see that as a viable position, so to say. It's just a way of compensation. But my view, though, and the other ministers here for the life for especially some that were laid off. I mean, some I don't even know them. Upon them, I mean, not up until they were laid off, are like, did this ministry really exist, or do we have ministry like this in Nigeria, or because they've not been redundant. So over the years. So I think it's a good development in some way, but sometimes, in other quarters, I don't see that, adding extra ministries is really commendable, or that's what we need at the moment.
We sincerely apologize for the break in transmission right here during the quick conversation with Mr. Victor Atewe, who's still with us. Let's quickly go back to that conversation very quickly before we move on to other major stories that we do have. Mr. Atewe, very, very quickly as we wrap things up, can you tell us, in your opinion, do you feel that the former ministers were given enough time by this administration, or they should have been given more time so that they can actually be judged from their performance? What's your thought?
Yeah, I think it's a two-way thing. Some should have been given more time. Some, for instance, the Minister of Education that was being laid off, I think, it was trying to put some measure in place, and you could see that he's really coming out with a whole lot of roadmap on, our educational system in the country. And also, Uju to Barrister Uju, I think that she would have. In my own take, I would have suggested that they should have given her, a little time to see what she will come up with, even though at one point she got distracted, in the position. But some need to be laid off. Some are really redundant. Some don't even know why they are there. Don't even understand the portfolio associated with the office. I think for some, just like as Nigerians are giving President Tinubu time to come up with this mandate, it is a renewal of agenda. I think that he should have, given them some time to really come out and, show what they have. But some have to be laid off. For instance, I really don't see what the former Minister of Tourism has really done, or what she's doing. Some have just been there. Maybe they thought they had the old time, or whatever they're thinking. But I think that they should have been given more time to some, not all. Some should have been given more time to, to really roll out their plan and executing. It's quite a short time for them. Some of them have been 1 year in office, so 1 year is really short. Because getting into office, trying to understand the bureaucracy, backlog of work, and trying to roll out their own policies and their own agenda to implement. It's going to take quite a while. But I think this also will go to show other ministers that not to rest on their oars, to come out and, of course, from day one, start the job. And of course, just hit the job and get it running, and of course deliver on what is being allocated or what's being given to you. I think this is also a wake-up call to them that you don't need to rest on your oars, and you have to just get your A game on.
All right, Mr. Atewe, thank you so much for joining us and shedding light on the current situation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Let's move now to security matters. The Federal Executive Council has approved a $618 million loan for the procurement of 6 fighter jets and ammunition for the Nigerian Air Force. This was announced by the Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, after the FEC meeting presided over by President Bola Tinubu. In addition, 740 billion naira has been allocated for the Abuja-Kano Road project. Idris also revealed approvals for Nigerian customs contracts and tax agreements with China and Botswana. The Air Force plans to receive the first of 24 M346 combat jets by 2025. Additionally, a Creative Economy Development Fund was established to boost Nigeria's creative sector, allowing creatives to use intellectual property as collateral for funding. And over now to politics. The People's Democratic Party, PDP, will select a new national chairman on November 28, according to former National Publicity Secretary Kola Olagundiyan. Speaking to the press, Olagundiyan confirmed that the new chairman will be chosen from the North Central Zone, the same region as former chairman Dr. Iyorchia Ayu. He noted that decisions from a recent stakeholders meeting indicates the party is rebounding with reconciliation efforts ongoing. Olagundiyan emphasized that under the leadership of former Osun State Governor Olagunsoye Oyelola, internal factions have been resolved. He added that the PDP is unified and ready for the National Executive Committee meeting on November 28. Let's stay with politics now. Edo State Commissioner for Communication and Orientation, Chris Neikare, has accused the All Progressives Congress transition team led by Dr. Pius Odubu of not being committed to a peaceful transition ahead of November 12. Speaking in Benin, Neikare refuted claims by the APC team that Governor Godwin Obaseki's administration had failed to provide necessary documents. He said the documents were made available digitally, but the APC team insisted on hard copies, which were also provided. Neikare further alleged that the APC team had boycotted joint committee meetings, showing reluctance to cooperate. He emphasized that the state's transition committee would continue working until October 30 to ensure smooth handover. Well, away from that, prominent members of the organized private sector have raised concerns over frequent collapses of the national power grid, saying the development is crippling already distressed businesses. Among the business groups that expressed concern were the Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, NASIMA, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, MAN, and the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, LCCI. This is even as the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, NECA, warned that the frequent collapse of the national grid has continued to hinder economic growth and slow down enterprise sustainability efforts, given the high energy costs businesses currently have to deal with. Nigeria's education institutions have continued to face a major challenge in the form of high energy tariffs, with many of them spending millions of naira to meet their power needs. This has led experts in the industry to come together to deliberate on ways of addressing the challenges while proffering practical solutions. News Central's Omolala Ololade tells us more in this report.
The epileptic power supply with high energy tariffs has been a major challenge for many Nigerians, including the country's education institutions. It is on this premise that the Education Writers Association of Nigeria, at its annual summit, brought together critical stakeholders to prefer practical solutions to the electricity challenges facing Nigeria's education institutions.
If our schools don't have light, whether it is primary, basic, secondary, tertiary institutions, there is little that they can do, because especially at this time when we are in the age of technology. And that's why we said it is important for us to quickly put stakeholders together, let them come and give us solutions, especially with the rising tariff. You can see everybody is complaining, individuals are complaining, and our institutions are in the dark.
University authorities complain bitterly of spending millions of naira each month to keep the lights on. Hence, finding alternative means of generating power has become imperative.
We need the supply of electricity, but not at the rate at which they're asking us to pay. That cannot work. It needs quick intervention of the government so that we can, even for a month or for 2 months, we cannot even sustain what they are bringing. We are facing the challenge of having constant electricity by getting alternative means of generating electricity ourselves.
While NEC attributes the high energy tariff to Naira's devaluation and rise in inflation, power distribution companies are of the opinion that more government support is needed in terms of funding for these institutions.
If inflation and exchange rate crashes tomorrow, this tariff will automatically crash, because what we are seeing today is the impact of inflation and exchange rate. And electricity sector is also just like any other sector you can think of in this country. And we are also affected by inflation and the rate of exchange rate. So it's as simple as that.
The answer to their complaint is simply that federal government should endeavor to fund the universities more. Go and check the national budget. The money allocated to education funding in Nigeria is just too low. And there are a lot of priorities that they also need to embark upon.
Just like every other business and sector of the economy, the Nigerian education system needs constant electricity supply to ensure it delivers on its purpose, the delivery of quality education. In Lagos for News Central, I am Omolola Ololade.
Away from that, let's head to Benue State, where the Governor Hanson has suspended the State Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice Fidelis Mining for joining a suit challenging the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission's legality without his approval. This action follows the withdrawal of 3 states, Anambra, Adamawa and Ebonyi, from the suit. Mining's suspension was confirmed by the governor's spokesperson, who stated that he failed to inform the governor before joining the suit. The governor's decision reflects his disapproval of mining's unauthorized action. In the meantime, the case of alleged bribery and misappropriation of public funds involving the national chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Dr. Abdullahi Gandu and 7 others has been adjourned to November 20 by Kano State High Court. Gandu alongside his wife, Hafsat Umar, and several associates face an 8-count charge of bribery, misappropriation and diverting public funds amounting to billions of naira. The charges were brought by the Kano State government, which alleges that the defendants were involved in the illicit division and mismanagement of public resources. During Wednesday's court session, which was set for the hearing of a preliminary objection filed by the 6th defendant, counsel to the plaintiff, Adiola Didikbe, informed the court that they were prepared to proceed. Serious concerns are emerging over the state of the Federal Teaching Hospital in Lokoja, Kogi State, north-central Nigeria. Reports of structural issues and deteriorating service delivery have been circulating, and now new revelations are shedding light on the severity of the situation. Our correspondent Joshua Marayi spoke to residents in the state who shared their experiences and frustrations with the hospital's services.
Michael Adejo, not his real name, is a resident of Lokoja, the Kogi State capital. Adejo is among many who have been affected by the crisis at the Federal Teaching Hospital in Lokoja between the hospital management and sub-staff of the hospital. With a heavy heart, he continues to mourn the recent loss of his mother, who lost her life due to negligence at the hospital facility as she was unable to receive adequate care before her unfortunate demise.
My mom just passed on of recent for the hospital. The day we carry and come, with the emergency, proper, as in, we cause serious noise for emergency there. Imagine my mom don't carry my mom come there around as early as to 7 in the morning. Before the trained doctor will come attend to her, almost around after 5. Many patients they die. No be see natural sickness. Now just because of attention, make many patients they die.
They talk say sometimes they know they get light. Say yes, for darkness go just day.
Yes, they know they get light. Mainly now the emergency and generator, the emergency they run now.
Some other patients say a hospital should be a place of healing and care. For Jamilu Abdullahi, the teaching hospital has become a place of shock and delusionment.
Well, from outside now we see the structure of the place fine. You mean say the inside not fine?
At all. If you go to the bedroom, you like, is human using this very bedroom or animal? Like you ask this question, now human being they use this bedroom, I've been an animal they use. One thing I just discovered is they just paint the outside, do little innovation. So if you are passing, you see that this place is okay, but go inside and see it yourself.
Another resident, Ezekiel Jonathan, a middle-aged man, also resident in Lokoja, says that he received a prescription from the same hospital, hoping to finally get drugs for his father. However, what should have been a straightforward visit to the hospital NHIS pharmacy turned out to be a frustrating ordeal for the 4th time in recent months.
If you look at everything here, it's complete politics going on here. Just now they prescribe drugs. I went to the NHIS pharmacy. Those drugs are not there. I had to come outside of the hospital to get these drugs. And this is not the first time. I think this is the fourth time now this is happening. There's nothing working here. Go through the wards everywhere. I don't have much to say, but if there is a way things can change here, which I don't think is possible.
Several attempts have been made to reach the management of the Federal Teaching Hospital in Lokoja. The hospital public relations officer declined to comment on the matter, but instead directed News Central to consult with the Kogi State chapter of the Nigerian Union of Journalists. In Lokoja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
Well, let's head straight and join our man with the latest story still staying in Kogi State. A severe flood has submerged 9 out of 21 local government areas in Kogi State located in the north-central region of Nigeria. The disaster has forced residents to indeed evacuate their homes, with many seeking refuge in designated camps set up for displaced persons. The flooding which has affected hundreds, has been attributed to continuous heavy rainfall and the overflow of major rivers. Now we're being joined by our correspondent Joshua Imarai, who is actually on ground following up with the situation of things. You do recall that there were indeed mentions of flooding that could in any way inadvertently affect major areas in the state. But Joshua, I mean, you're there. Can you give us an update and a feedback very quickly on what the situation really looks like?
Well, I'm currently at the St. Luke Primary School in Adankolo, the Kogi State, and the Kogi State capital, Lokoja, where some of the residents of the Kogi State have been displaced by the flooding that has submerged quite a number of areas here in Kogi. And currently, we are conducting an on-the-spot assessment of the entire environment here in Kogi State. Well, the situation is there, as I can say, based on our observation so far. We've noted the condition of living here, which seems not to be okay for them. They are complaining series of issues concerning pertaining the classrooms they've been paired to stay. And I can say for sure that the state here is deplorable, as some of the classrooms where they've been designated to stay are classrooms that are facing deplorable condition. It is noteworthy that this primary school, activities in this primary school are ongoing. That has been scheduled to be one of the displaced persons camp here in Kogi State. And as you can see, there are people over here who are residents of the Kogi State and have been affected by the situation. They are here. One of the challenges they are facing is housing, which the state emergency response units have designated this place to be the IDP camp of the state. We spoke to some of the women earlier. They are facing some issues of hunger, but according to what I gathered from them, the governor was here 3 days ago, who promised to give them some of the relief items, and according to what I heard and what we've gathered so far, the relief item has been given to them, ranging from bags of rice and to some bags of semo as well. But the condition here is not quite okay, concerning the fact that they are exposed to a series of open air classrooms, classroom without mosquito net, and they've been limited to the option of sleeping on mats only, as that is the only provision they could get. Most of them have gone out to seek for their daily bread, while some of them are still hanging around. They've come here as the only solution to solve the housing issue. I am here with one of the vigilante person who has been stationed, the commander of the vigilante group of Nigeria, who has been stationed here to take charge of the security situation here in this camp, and he's here with me to give us an assessment and his reaction to the entire thing happening in this camp. Join me, sir. So, what is your name, sir?
My name is Idris Jihad Ahmed, Commander Vigilante Group of Nigeria.
So we understand that some people's homes have been sacked by the flood. Are you one of them?
One of them by the grace of God.
So what is the situation here in this camp?
The situation from the beginning will find it difficult, but for now, after the intervention of the government, we are a little bit okay, because it brings some relief materials to us, and it promised us water, and by the grace of God, yesterday they come here to dig borehole. So we're a little bit balanced.
Okay. When I talk to you, look at the camera so they'll see you. So what kind of relief material was given to you by the government?
Food stuff, rice, semo, and other things for cooking materials. Yes.
So what is the condition of sleeping like? Do you have mattresses? Do you have mosquito nets?
Yes, we even have some medical teams that come to treat us. We have some, they come along with mosquito net and they give us drugs, mattresses, but the mattresses are not much. You cannot, because the population is over. So let's go and
Okay, I still have with me, I still have around here some of the people who are staying here in this internal displaced persons camp. And one of them is a woman who, as you can see from afar, is coming with a baby who has been here for the past 1 week and 4 days. You can go, sir. You can go, sir. So, who has been here for the past 1 week and 4 days, and she has been here with her child. So, madam, join me. Join me. Well, based on what you hear from the camera and what you hear from this man, they've been told not to speak to us until we see some of the state emergency response team here. Unfortunately, when we got here early in the morning, they were not here, but now they've come. We had some conversations with them, and they decried the situation at which this place has been since they are residents here. And one of the challenges they face is the plight of mosquito and the plight of some open air. Sometimes when the rain starts and the cases of the deplorable classroom, they run back to some places to stay. So that is all for now from Kogi State.
All right. Thank you so much, Imarayi, for that coverage. Hopefully, we will circle back and get more updates from you. And it's also good to know that the governor did pay a condolence visit to them. Thanks for joining us again. The UN's Refugee Agency has said it is deeply concerned by the news that 4 refugees who were abducted in Kenya were returned to Turkey. The 4 were repatriated at the request of the Turkish government. Now, this is according to Kenya's Foreign Ministry. Meanwhile, Amnesty International's Kenya office says it's deeply concerned by reports that 7 asylum seekers from Turkey were abducted on Kenyan soil and the imminent forceful and unlawful return to Turkey. In a statement, the UNHCR has urged the government of Kenya to abide by their international legal obligations and in particular to respect the principle of non-refoulement forced return of refugees, which protects asylum seekers and refugees from any measure that could lead to their removal to a place where their life or freedom would be threatened. Well, to discuss this with me this morning on News Now, I'm joined by Rungu Horton, Amnesty International Kenya Section Director, Nairobi, Kenya. Thanks for being here and taking time out to speak with us. Now, can you provide a brief overview of the case involving the abduction of Turkish nationals in Kenya? And I'll also understand that they have been forcibly returned to Turkey. Can you also share more light on that?
Thank you very much for inviting Amnesty International Kenya to offer light on this very disturbing story that happened. So on the 18th of October, last Friday, 7 Turkish nationals who were refugees and protected under the United Nations were essentially kidnapped by the Kenyan authorities. We now know from the admission by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that this was a joint operation between the Kenyan law enforcement agencies and the Turkish government. Within 17 hours, 4 of the 7 Turkish nationals were essentially put on a plane and sent back against their wishes to the to Turkey. And the government has cited strong bilateral relationship, their strong bilateral relationships with the Turkish government. But our major concern has been that there was no evidence that any of these 4 individuals constituted a security threat, and therefore this essentially has been a refoulement or a forceful return to a country in which they feared risk of persecution.
All right. What specific human rights violations do you see occurring in this situation, particularly in the context of enforced disappearances?
Human rights violations. The first is the risk to the 4 individuals that are now back, we assume, in Ankara, Turkey, and the anguish to their families and friends. Many of the, most of the 4 Turkish refugees were very well known in Kenya. They had been living in Kenya for up to 20 years. They had built very strong relationships with Kenyans. And again, there was absolutely no evidence that has been provided that they were criminal or that they had broken any of the laws of Kenya. So I think the first one is essentially the violation to the risk that this poses to their lives. Secondly, as UN protected refugees, they were subject to the protection of the Geneva Convention. This is a 1951 convention that's signed by all governments across the world. And it essentially says that no refugee can be returned back to their country of origin once they are protected as a refugee, unless there is a conviction against a serious crime that has been occurred or rather perpetuated against the host country in which they are currently located or in their country of origin. And that's under Article 33.2. But we again have seen none of this. I think the other danger that we expect is, what does this mean for the 780,000 refugees that live in Kenya and have sought the Kenyan government protection? What does this mean for those refugees as well?
Well, thanks so much for shedding light on this one as well. Thank you for joining us, Irungu Houghton, Amnesty International Kenya Section Director, all the way from Nairobi, Kenya. Thanks for talking with us. And that's all we have for you on the news this hour. Before we go, a quick reminder of some of the major stories. President Tinubu sacks 5 ministers, appoints 7 others. PDP accuses APC of reluctance to cooperate as handover date draws near. And United Nations concerned over return of Turkish refugees abducted in Kenya. You can watch us live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and you can always stream News Central 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on YouTube as well as on Facebook. The ladies will be here at 10 a.m. For Jasiri, I'm Joe Hanson. Good morning.